Joining us, folks, from somewhere, located somewhere around the globe. It's Mike from around the world. Mike, how you doing tonight?
God bless you, Pastor Paul. Doing okay.
Okay, wait a minute. We got to have a voice here. Hang on. Say that again.
Is it okay now?
Oh, it sounds great.
Okay, doing okay.
Mike, I'm glad to hear that. You sound better than last week.
Yeah, I feel better.
Yeah, your voice much better. Well, Mike, we've been talking here about these solar flares. There's 3 of them in the last 24 hours. 1 in the last couple hours, which was mammoth. It was, we had an X class 1.8, and then we had an X class 1.7, and those might have been what caused all these power outages. Cell phone outages. And then about 2 hours ago, we just had a massive X class 6.3. And this is the largest one in 7 years. So you have all 3 of those in a 24-hour period. And I guess my first question is this the beginning of a hostile sun due to the binary system that's coming into our solar system?
Well, that's a good question, Pastor Paul. So let me explain this. About, I think it was January. I put some dates up in January.
Yeah, yes, you did.
Of course, that was on the website. One of the dates was February 20th. And that's been up there a while. The other one is February 28th. So those have been up there for a while. But in order for someone to get close to any solar event yet again like that, well, they must know something about
right,
some perturber somewhere, right? So
right.
Here's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that some sort of credibility with consistency with these dates will put a bit of a foundation for something more that must come forward, because although we have lots of problems in this world, our entire solar system will be under siege soon. And it's not really something anybody should take lightly, but should be highly aware of. Which is why I suggested that webinar with, BP and all those individuals who know about Nibiru, some people call it, or binary system is what I know it by, and solar events and the like, because we're going to have to deal with that more and more this year, and it will be devastating at times. So I'm hoping that some sort of credibility can be established in that area, because it's very difficult to believe, Pastor Paul, when you're talking about something the world does not cover.
Right.
Talking about a subject that most people don't understand. For example, you have amateur astronomers and those who work with JPL and all these different guys. Whenever they begin to figure their calculations dealing with celestial mechanics and gravitational pull, this, that, and the other, there is still a lopsided inertial tug on our solar system coming from one side. And the only way to explain that is a large gravitational pull coming from out there in space. The only thing that would ever have that power to sustain it that long, we're talking about since the time of Voyager. The only thing that would have that type of mass to do that would be a binary twin, but not one, it's not textbook, no, but it would have the mass to offset some of the formulas they have to adjust for. Even this small flight that went to the moon, that was an autonomous vehicle, and autonomy is very important because it can make adjustments on the fly, which is very important.
So are you saying that this moon landing that just happened this evening is something to do with Nibiru?
No. What I'm saying is that the forces that are acting on our solar system are so strong that they have to make, they have to have craft with autonomy where they can make their own decisions.
I see.
And when they're flying in space, so they can make adjustments, right?
Yep.
Or they wouldn't make it. They just wouldn't make it. So as this force becomes stronger and stronger, it definitely will mess with a heliosphere, is what it's doing right now. And of course, any weak spot in the heliosphere will demand a response around the sun. It's a very intricate system. Think of it as a cell wall, right? If your cell wall and any of your cells are penetrated, your body's going to react. The sun and the heliosphere are the exact same way, right? Even as far as ratios, the Creator made the ratios of this solar system that we're in, just like the human cell. It's amazing. It's quite amazing. But the sun is becoming active in very predictable ways.
Let's talk about that.
Predictable.
So let me.
There's a known perturber out there.
Okay, so let's back up for just a moment for some of the audience who may be the first time they're here or don't know what Mike is saying. Mike has given us dates going back, I believe, in November or certainly in December, January into February. He's given us several specific dates of events that were going to happen with the sun or affecting the sun. And we've seen those dates come to pass one after another. And now this massive, this insane 3 solar flares in a 24-hour period, you predicted this again. And you're saying is we have to build some credibility of what you're talking about by setting dates and then showing people when things are happening so that when you explain why it happens, people won't just say, oh, no, I don't hear these crazy idiots. Because you're not going to hear this from the mainstream media. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, right. They're not going to cover that. They can't cover that because if anybody ever knew that if it were true in the mind of the populace, no stability would be maintained to this point. Everybody would take their own future in their own hands, and it would become a virtual. It would be real chaos in the world. So nobody should ever look forward to that. People will have the effects on the tops of their heads before they admit anything. They're just not going to do it. And don't you find it strange that we have those flares, of course, right? Now, the actual cell phone event, this cell phone trouble with the networks is strange. Let me explain one thing. For example, AT&T, starting at 3:30 a.m., which was one of the first network flip bit problems, you had a series of phones go down. Now, here's what that means. You could be in your house, your phone could go down, Heidi's could stay up, right? Or your son's could go down and somebody else's could stay up. This was happening all over the place, which suggests that it was some sort of batch outage. Now, what I mean by that is when all cell phones have an ID, right? So they have a unique signature, so to speak. And it was certain batches of phones within those ID lots that were going down. This was with AT&T for the most part. Now they handle government emergency communications also. AT&T does.
Okay. Which
means soldiers out in the field utilize some of that network. And there was a knowing. But when that network went down, some of the individuals from, for example, T-Mobile, Verizon, all these guys, their servers were routing the calls, but nobody could reach any AT&T network. And some of their calls began to, was jammed up. So I would say that was more, I'm not definitively saying this because I can't. Even if I knew what it was, I still can't say it. But I would say this was more of an internal issue they had to handle, which could have come from an external source.
So it could have been a hack by one of the major players, nations here in the world.
Right. Now, and hacking is not like it used to be. It's not always somebody external from the U.S. trying to get to the U.S. We have real problems here in the U.S. now where people that are part of corporations and companies hate the USA. In their minds, the USA is gone, and they will take these irrational actions to do certain things. So they quickly had to swap everybody over to a different network so they can work the other system. They will find the absolute cause. They will find the signatures. They've isolated the drives and the equipment that was affected by this. But it's odd. It would all happen at the same time, almost like somebody was taking advantage of any type of event to strike.
Yeah, and here's the thing I thought of earlier today is, I think I told Heidi this, I said, it's as if there's some probing going on. They could have really taken down the cell phone systems, the GPS systems, everything. But it was like they were just probing to see what they could do when they want to do it. And they took advantage of the solar flares that were erupting on the sun as a good time to test it. Is that, I mean, we've seen probing going on with the Iranians and Hezbollah. And,
they probe.
The Russians do a lot of probing as well, and China, and we do a lot of probing in the United States. So is that what we might have been seeing, a little probing going on internally or even externally?
We could have. One of the most disturbing things about it is not the communications. It is the way that people reacted. It is what is the information they gained, right, from the reaction from the news. Because I intentionally looked at every single news organization to see what they were going to say. Now, these guys had genuine questions, and all of them said the same thing. They said, well, could it be from the solar flares?
Right.
Which means they did not know.
Right.
They didn't know. AT&T could not give a response quick enough. The White House got involved. They wanted to know what happened. Okay, so our enemies were also watching the same news channels that everybody else watches, right?
Yeah.
So they too were gauging this. What's so dangerous about this, Pascal, is that communications causing that type of reaction lets anybody out there understand and know that we have gotten a little too arrogant concerning technology, a little too comfortable, right?
Yep.
We have a power grid, and each network in a power grid is isolated. Nobody can really hack into it unless they write their own station. If that were to happen with a power company, it would send everything would be upside down. Plus, if they were able to do that with a power plant, so to speak, it'd only be about a couple of hours before we had a meltdown. Now, unlike other times that we've been in, because most of these nuclear facilities haven't altered, if they did have a meltdown, which could take place in about a couple of hours, and it would be irreversible, you're talking about a radius of about 100 miles to, I say, 1 to 1,000 miles of an actual kill radius, right?
Wow.
You're also looking at more than that, the radius of sickness and things like that, right? We have some very vulnerable issues within the U.S., and we have this at a time where the populace is not quite loyal to the U.S. In other words, we have people in this house called the United States of America who hate the house.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And things are becoming unhinged. And this should, whether the Lord allowed this to happen, whether somebody did this and it was some nefarious activity, whether somebody hacked it and it was a foolish act or some equipment broke down, it demonstrates our lack of resolve when needed. It really does. Civilian and government coordination is not high enough to overcome this problem quickly and efficiently enough, right? They should have restored communications within a couple of minutes. There should have been a redundant backup to handle communications easily, right? So only a few people should have noticed that outage. That wasn't the case. It began at 3:30 a.m. Even AT&T did not recognize the outage until a specific website, which people report to, saying that their service is out.
Wow.
They took a look at it, they verified. So we have a problem. That's a problem.
Well, a lot of the 911 emergency systems didn't work. And then this is a huge problem. Now that everybody's got off the landline and have went to cell phones, but when the 911 in major cities wasn't working, this is catastrophic.
Yeah, there are 4G delayed networks there, or secure networks there. And so when AT&T's routing system went down, right, when they actually route calls, that was it. Because every single call has to be routed somewhere. A computer, a set of servers handles that. But again, the big problem was you had certain government facilities that had problems, Pastor Paul, right?
Yep.
That's a no-go. Certain military installations were affected by the AT&T outage.
Wow.
Of all the companies, AT&T was the big one. That is the wrong company to be able to, get to, right? Any communications company could do us in.
Yeah, so that's AT&T. Where we kind of feel that the probing from some actor, a nefarious actor, whether it's somebody right here, several people in here, it wouldn't be just one guy hacking on a computer. I mean, this is a highly orchestrated event, whether it's from exterior nation or someone or a group inside. This was no, lucky hacker.
Right. And sadly enough, if this was an attempt to probe, to see what the reaction of the U.S. was, I believe they got too much information today, right? Which it also means they could easily diverge our attention to small things like that while they do something else.
Wow.
We have vulnerabilities.
Yes,
we do.
Yes.
And unfortunately, people are not coming together to handle that, right?
Well, let's talk about some of the things that's happening right now. We can look at the Middle East and we can look in Russia. The fact that the United States, thank God, the President of the United States held on to his veto power and did not let a vote come up to divide the land of Israel in a two-state solution. But boy, we're hanging on by a thread here. And now Benny Gantz has made the statement that if you want this, if you don't want to have us attacking Rafah during Ramadan, you better right now turn over all the hostages or we're coming. I think that is a serious, that could blow things sky high in the Middle East. What's your thoughts?
Well, it's the tensions in the Middle East in the last 28 hours has increased. It's the atmosphere is quite thick, right? Yeah. A lot of uncertainty. And the situation, again, it's a bit worse than what anybody would report, right? There's a legitimate worry with commanders and folks like that who are over there that there's a massive underestimation of things. But I personally believe that Joel chapter 3, we're about to see Joel chapter 3.
Yep.
And because they're going to, in my opinion, this is my opinion, they're going to part that land.
Yep.
They're going to force it.
I agree.
They're talking more and more that they want to disarm Israel. They're calling Israel a Middle Eastern terrorist organization. Is what they're
That's
calling
crazy. That's crazy. But just what you're saying.
Iran has overwhelming support.
I know.
Not only that, Pastor Paul, but you have NATO. They're ready to act outside of the USA.
That's
not looking for
okay. Well, now, is that because we don't have the leadership that we used to have? I mean, when NATO starts saying, look, we can't wait around for Joe Biden or the Americans, we're going to have to take the ball and run with it ourselves. Is this, I mean, this is a shift of the global order, isn't it?
Yeah, it's, you know what, if you look, it's been slowly but surely, it's kind of like Saudi Arabia, right, and Iran. Iran doubled their income with Saudi Arabia, who double dealt with Jordan and the USA and Israel, right, and Russia. Yeah. So they've been triple dipping, but they've made so much money, Pastor Paul, right? Saudi Arabia is spending the equivalent of about $4 billion every 3 days on projects.
Okay, that's a lot of money. Okay.
So, but it's not hurting them because they're also feeding Iran. See, they have back channel alliances that they deal with. So these guys they're talking one way. Believe me, they're working on something else.
Right.
And their attitude is turning hostile towards Western culture, Western things, which is just like prophecy. But we're going to see an escalation in that. And China, by the way, China is becoming highly aggressive in what they're doing. And so, we're going to have to make a move at some point. For example, CERN, that facility CERN is no longer, it was one of the biggest machines on the earth, right?
Right.
Not anymore. China has that beat. China unveiled something to a degree, not to the whole world, but they unveiled something. They have a facility that is twice as big as CERN, right? It sits about 1.3 miles underneath the Earth. It is, Pastor, it's huge.
What?
These guys, somehow, they have copied, crafted the equipment they need to harness a lot of dark matter. A lot of dark. I mean, a lot of. I'm not talking about a little bit, right? Over the course of years, no, a lot of dark matter. They have actually successfully blanked out some of the neutrino noise that's necessary to hear or to actually observe dark matter by way of calculations to extract. And they're going to do it. They're working on that right now. And these guys started this project not too long ago, right? So they're doing it. They're also digging a hole right to the core of the Earth. All these correlate. So China does not have time to wait on everybody else. And their aggression factor is scaring the admirals of our Navy.
So are you saying a 1 mile and a third into the Earth, they have built a machine bigger than the CERN and
Yes.
Is it another CERN? It's another collider, right?
It's a much bigger device. It does they don't have the regulations that everybody else has. So they have just upped the ante.
What about this boring a hole into the heart of the Earth? I mean, what's the purpose?
Same thing Russia did.
Okay.
You remember Russia? Russia was boring that hole.
Yeah, I do remember that, yes.
Well, they had to close that hole, Pastor. They had to.
Okay.
Not only did they reach an impenetrable barrier where diamond titanium bits could not penetrate. I mean, it could not. But other things were taking place.
Spiritual?
Run into that same problem.
Okay.
In the month of March, right? But they have a plan to go past it because they've been doing a lot of exploratory research concerning the depths of the Earth. And these guys are not going to stop at that impenetrable barrier. They have looked beyond that already, right? China's doing so much. That's why we had to get that craft on the moon. And we had to get that craft on the moon in a spot where China has already claimed. They already claimed that spot. You know that, right? So expect some sort of moon war coming out of this.
Well, I do expect that because I know China is trying to claim the moon almost for their own. And oh, by the way, Iran's claiming the Arctic all of a sudden. So there's a lot of territory snatching.
It's not hype. China's been to the moon 4 times, successfully landing 4 craft up there that are working in tandem to do things on the moon right now. This is our first successful landing. Because of one a couple weeks ago, it failed. We had 2 more before that. They failed. And so essentially the U.S. is contracting civilian companies to build them, the equipment, and they kind of guide it up there, so to speak, with a co-op, because they want to get up there pretty quick. So they're going to the moon again, but we may have, if they can, I don't know. That depends on what happens on Earth. We are in a pickle. We are, and it's destabilizing quickly.
So let me ask you a question: as the war rages on in Russia and Ukraine, and like you said with Israel, there's so much on the table there. The question is now, Russia took over that one city, the big city. They're taking over villages and towns. I'm understanding that they have captured hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers, as made them POWs. And Zelensky looks like he's running out of gas, and the wheels are starting to come off. Do you think Putin will continue to force to take the whole country? Do you think Europe is going to cut their losses, NATO countries? Or what do you see happening here?
Well, Europe was waiting on the U.S. to see what our Congress would do, right?
Yeah.
We are effectively stalled.
Yeah.
We're stalled. And there's certain, elements to know that we're stalled. The Ukraine has been losing, unfortunately. I know a lot of people, they don't see it that way, right? But they've been losing.
Yeah.
And although a lot of people have been evacuated, many people do go to the Ukraine to fight for that cause. Putin is not going to give up. He's not going to stop. He's not going to back down. He's going to continue to go forward with that until he restores what he believes is Mother Russia and all of its territories. And he's willing to do what's necessary to make that happen.
Well, Mike, that would include the Baltic states,
all of its territories,
Poland, Romania,
all of its territories.
So NATO knows this. NATO knows that.
Yeah.
And Putin is not flinching. And when Tucker Carlson interviewed him the other day, he didn't look like a man that was on his last leg. He didn't sound like a guy who didn't know what was going on. Once KGB, always KGB, the way I see it. He's on a mission, right?
Yeah, the media lies, Pascal. They buy propaganda. They painted a picture as though Putin was this, had become frail and senile. And by the way, he died like 4 times according to media stories. Yeah. So they just, they continue to lie with that propaganda with these, but I guess they don't understand that hurts the situation because that fuels Russia to do much more. Anyway, he's very vibrant. He's very in control of his faculties, and he's going to continue to push down that door to the Ukraine and more. And his warnings are real, and he is prepared to use greater weapons. Now, when NATO makes their decision, Pastor Paul, and we have committed troops to certain ground activities in or near the Ukraine, he will use higher yield weapons. He will.
Wow.
And everybody is they know that. Everybody knows this. They're getting positioned for that. Now, just so everybody has some clarity, what that means is over there in that region, it will begin to explode everywhere. People here in the USA, they will see Israel in great duress. They're going to see Israel in duress. They're going to see the Middle East in duress. And we may see that for, based on that war for some time without it actually being able to penetrate us. But at some point, we'll be drawn into.
So let's talk about.
There's time for that.
Yeah, let's talk about Israel. You made the point that you believe this is Joel 3, and I do too. I honestly, this is the Joel 3 prophecy. The whole world's being brought down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and God is pleading with the world, don't do this. You don't want to do this. But they're going to do it. I think Jesus gave us that clue in Matthew 24 when he said, when you see this, you better flee. Jews are living in Judea. You better get out of there. Don't even get stuff out of your house. So it's coming. I mean, do you see that event? Do you see this thing coming to a head in the next 12 months?
Pastor Paul, that could explode, right? At this year. It could really happen this year. And, speaking of that scripture you brought up, it's the only time Jesus ever told anybody to run.
Yep.
Right?
You're right.
It's the only time. And if Christ tells somebody to run, well, they might want to think twice about that. And of course, in Joel, one of the more notable passages, at the end it says, they have scattered among them. Let me read the whole thing. It says, I will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations.
Yep.
And parted my land.
That's
past tense.
That's past tense.
So that means they did it.
Yes.
Yeah, they parted the land. So that means for that prophecy to come to pass, they're going to go ahead and make their decisions. They're going to force Israel to do what they're talking about right now. And
I think
I
think that what's happening now that it's coming down to the United States. We're the last veto, and then once they do vote on the floor of the General Assembly of the United Nations, which could be this September, let's say, they're going to force it. The only way you can disarm Israel is you have to cut off the funding, and that's the United States. So if the United States cuts off the funding or the artillery or the technology, they basically can disarm Israel. Am I correct?
And here's the bad news. You ready?
Yep.
They have already cut the funding to the Ukraine.
Yep.
Without the president didn't make that. This is all in the hands of Congress.
Right.
Somebody inside the White House, somebody inside Congress, Pascal, is not working in the best interest of the USA. They're doing everything NATO dictates. More specifically, they're doing everything France dictates.
Are you
And
serious?
all you have to do is everything France declares.
Are you serious? Because
right? They're
I mean,
standing against or for things. See, I don't get into politics. But
right.
People in Washington, they have three faces. The people see one face, and it's the face that they want people to see. Then there's a much darker face. And all you have to do is really watch foreign moves, and you'll see them matched only by a small group of people, sometimes, most often word for word, as though they're handed a script and they will not move from it. They attempt to portray this in the favor of the people, right? That's not going to work out so well. And when people finally find out, it's going to be too late. They're blind. I think that many people can't see it right now because we have too many internal distractions, right?
Yeah.
President Trump and this, the prosecution of him and his family and his corporations, businesses, and so on.
How do you feel about that, Mike? How do you feel?
Huge distraction for a lot of
well,
people.
how do you feel about that personally? I mean, with the way he's being treated.
Oh boy, I'll tell you something. People are always going to have, in politics, they're going to have their feuding and their fights, right?
Yeah.
But my biggest problem is the people. Okay, here's why I say that. When people claim they care about the candidate they vote for, right? They do. If they truly cared, he wouldn't be in this mess. And what I mean by that, if President Trump has 70 million supporters, how come they can't give him $2 a piece? $5 a piece.
Right.
Right? Why can't they do that twice in a week? Problem solved. Here's the issue, though. For some reason, people will say they care. They support, follow, and everything else. But I believe that money has power over too many people.
True.
They cannot part from it. They will not back up, what they truly feel with that dollar. It overpowers them for some reason.
Yeah.
Right?
You're true.
My only advice for that is, if a dollar bill can change, if having money can change my attitude, then money is stronger than the living God in my life.
That's
Nothing
not
should
good.
have power to change my attitude. If God is at the top, he's on his throne in my life, then nothing can change my attitude but him. Right?
Amen.
Everything else is subsidiary to him.
Amen.
But far too many people give money too much power. And it's time that be reversed. Right? That's why
Amen.
people withhold things. I can almost feel it in me. The people, I don't know what it is, Pastor Paul. They are.
Well, is some of it fear?
They allow it.
It's a lack of faith. That's first of all.
Yeah,
it's
time. Something is getting them.
And then it's also the faith is being replaced with the fear of what might happen to them. I mean, let me say this politically, and I don't want to get into that, but the polls, the favorability of Trump in New York went sky high up from where he was at. So much so that they start to wonder, the Democrat Party is starting to wonder, could he flip New York? That's how much the people of New York felt he was being railroaded in this whole thing. So this means the country right now is really in this vice. They're in a vice. And they're not sure which way they should go. Because they're afraid. At some point, they got to make their decision. And I think if people would just listen to the Lord, they would know exactly what to do. But people just won't. So you see this escalating even worse than the chaos?
Yeah. They're not going to stop until they accomplish what they want to accomplish. They're not. Unless, to be fair, there were some unreported casualties involved, right? And it really hit close to home. People are wild. They really are. For example, somebody could say something that is benign in nature and somebody else can hear it and take it to the extreme and act on it. And that's what we face here. Not everybody is sane enough, right, to hear certain things. And in this case, people did die. They did not report it, but people did die. You're talking about congressional members who had folks who died, and they are unforgiving in that area. So they're going to go after everything they can go after, right? Which is, by the way, is not going to... This thing that people do when they say, we need justice.
Right.
I hate to tell them, the justice that man has is not going to bring anybody back. It's not going to solve their issues. It's not. It never does. The Floyd issue, right? All that justice did absolutely nothing. It didn't do anything.
Didn't do anything.
And because there is no justice that man can give that can suffice somebody, being taken away. They have to really look into truth itself. And I'll say it again, for some reason, there's a thickness spreading all over the earth that's blinding quite a few people.
Well, you think
to get to them.
It's sort of like the strong delusion that the Bible talks about in Thessalonians. Is it the beast kingdom, the new world order? I mean, the one world government.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, what do you see? How do you see it developing, Mike?
Oh my. Pascal, look, let's break it. Let's break it, because people know about the mark, right?
Right. They know.
People know about cryptocurrency.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Those who are into cryptocurrency probably need to look into who just bought up billions of dollars. Well, they're buying up billions of dollars every single day in Bitcoin, right? They need to look into folks like BlackRock and all these different individuals and these large corporations that are now buying up Bitcoin. Hopefully they can equate that they're not doing this just for the fun of it. No, they're not doing that.
No.
A long time ago, we discussed they're going to utilize that system, right, the Bitcoin system, because foreigners are involved in that. It has become one of the main currencies of a couple of nations, and they're going to make that permanent here, which means, Pascal, here it is. You ready? I'm not making a financial prediction. I'm just relaying something.
Okay.
They expect Bitcoin, right, to go up to I think the term was $210,000 per coin.
Wow. I mean, right now it's like 52,000.
This is what they expect.
Okay.
So a lot of people, because it's about to be a very rare coin, right?
Right.
I'm sure that people are going to go back who are involved in Bitcoin and look at this. And when you find out what I'm saying is true, don't make any financial decisions based on this. I'm just telling you some things that I know from the inside. And so you have a lot of big players jumping in, right? And they will effectively, because they can't control Bitcoin right now, right?
No.
And if you can't control Bitcoin, and anybody can get rich, you cannot govern who has power and who does not. However, if you start buying up a bunch of wallets, you get in there and you have the largest, you own the largest shares, and you start buying it up to the point where mining becomes redundant, because you're going to have the coins, right, where they become a rare coin. And if you own that larger wallet, you can effectively manipulate anything you want to legally, because every financial decision you make is going to affect everybody else.
Yeah.
And all the other coins are tied to Bitcoin. This is what's happening, because they're getting ready for the mark. They're getting ready to consolidate everything.
So the dollar's got to die, doesn't it? And it's
going to be replaced.
Okay, yeah, that's what I mean. It's going to lose its power. The world won't be operating off a petrodollar. It's going to shift. Maybe Bitcoin is the bridge to this new currency, or maybe Bitcoin is this new currency. I don't know, but it's leading us to the mark of the beast.
Oh yeah, it's definitely doing that, because they're going to take everybody who has any type of, if they have, money other than, some of your precious metals. But if they have money and they're used to living their life, they're going to continue to do that for as long as possible. Right. So what they'll do is they'll get people used to a different way of exchanging their money. This was a program that I think I discussed this in 2001, I believe, because I saw a SOP, kind of like a notebook, right? And it began with bank cards. It began with the banks. The banks had, certain SOPs they had to follow, a certain narrative they had to follow. This was followed up by, right? Because we had the Patriot Act back then, all that good stuff. The banks had everybody used to not carrying cash. Right now, the average person does not carry cash. They don't use cash like they used to. And so they got everybody used to digital transactions. So the phones, because they're so fun to play with and you can track things instantly, most people trust the software now. They can see their amount of money and they're good with that. Well, about 15 years ago, that wasn't so. People were not comfortable with seeing a dollar figure on a phone, right, with the money involved.
Right, no.
But now they aren't. They're totally confident. And so people have a vested interest in digital currency. They just don't know it yet. And when they take away the availability of cash, right, it will effectively change. It's going to be a very quick
shift,
change, right?
Yeah.
Something that people are going to want, because we're going to have a hacking problem that's going to scare all of us to pieces.
Yeah, and that's going to make it easier to shift the public into a cashless society.
They're not going to lose their money.
Right.
They're tied to that money passable. And imagine some bank is compromised and people start losing money, right?
Yeah.
And they have real trouble from that loss, where they're going to demand that somebody have better security. So they pay the money back, right? And then they apply the patches, do whatever they have to do, and they roll out the new security system.
Yep. And everybody,
once that security system is in play and people are told, hey, you never have to worry about hacking ever again, they're going to love it. And because they don't have to take the mark initially, they're going to get used to it. Once they're used to it, they're going to say, hey, in order for you to keep this,
yep,
you got to get this mark.
Yeah,
and that's people are going to gladly do that.
This is what you just did. The scenario is exactly what we've been looking at. Is they will bring out this new currency, this new system. Everybody will jump in because it'll be the system. But then there will be the day when for you to keep it, you have to deny Jesus Christ. Nobody gets tricked into the mark of the beast. Never. I mean, people go in full-throated, wide-eyed, no doubt about it, have to make a decision. And there will be people who will make the right decision, but there will be millions, a gazillion people who will not do the right thing because they have no more faith. They don't believe there's a God. Don't you think, Mike, part of the deal is we're being inundated with a godless society, a society that is demonically charged.
Of course, and Pastor, I've never seen anything like it. You have folks out there they claim the love of the Lord, right?
Right.
But they will not take a step in that direction of faith. They need some sort of compensation to feel like they're getting something in return, but they want no part of it. And then you have more and more people coming out saying, well, I just never believed in the first place. I can't do this. Then you have folks like, high representatives who claim that they're Christian, but then on secret recordings, they're cursing out everybody.
Right.
That's not working out either.
No.
So their real faith is more of a, some sort of to appease their conscience for the moment. But again, you have a lot of people. The dividing line for the mark and everything else is going to be the dollar passed ball again. If people do not learn how to give things away, they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
And I really think that's key. A lot of people, if I were to give you something, and you get it, and 3 weeks later, I check on you and say, well, how's it doing? Is it okay? You're treating it. Well, that's not giving you anything. That's loaning.
No, that's kind of buying some way.
Right? They loan them.
Yeah.
When you give something away, when you give somebody something, if I were to give somebody something, I want them, because it's theirs, it's no longer mine. I'm not going to check on it, do anything else. I want that to work for them. And I think that even with the Lord's children, they have to learn how to really give. Because when you really give, there's no jealousy, no envy, you don't have that thought, did I make a mistake? Shouldn't I?
Because you're giving to God. Because you're giving to God.
Right?
Yeah, when you give to God.
Should be with everything they do, Pastor Paul, with their love, right? With their love, with their servitude, feeding their families, with their children, their spouse. It should be with everything. It should be a practice that should be in us. And I guarantee if anybody ever does that, their spirit is going to, all these missing gaps that people have in their lives, that place they can't reach spiritually is going to be filled as soon as they do that. But for a lot of people, that's holding them back. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. And it's hurting them so much spiritually if they understood the power of giving. And when you give unto the Lord. Okay, you have to understand you're giving to God. You're letting go and you're letting God take control. And then you can't outgive God. It's impossible. If you believe that Bible and truly believe that God is the rewarder of them that diligently seek Him, which is what you're saying, then you have no problem in obeying God, giving to God, and trusting God to supply your every need, just like he said in the scripture. Let me ask you this question, Mike, because Jesus said, if you be ashamed of me before this evil and adulterous generation, I'll be ashamed of you before the presence of my Father and his holy angels. So part of this is people are going to have to get themselves in position to not be ashamed, to tell anybody and everybody that they are a servant of Jesus Christ, that they love him, and that they are following the Lord no matter what. You have to get in that mind frame. I mean, really you do if you're going to be a born again believer in Christ.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And you know what? The Lord does the rest. He's the one that said he'll finish the work he began in us.
That's right.
Right? So I don't have to finish anything, but I do have a commitment to going forward. I don't have reverse. I used to have a reverse. Not anymore. I have forward. But you know what, Pastor Paul? By doing that, by going forward, the joy came. The joy was never there. Until you start going forward and you're not looking. See, I have no backup plan.
Right, because there is no other plan.
Faith, you have no backup plan.
That's right. There is no other plan. That's right.
Folks with a backup plan, they're going to deviate. And this is not the right time to deviate because the earth is changing. A lot of people want to know, how can I protect my family? I'll tell you what. You might want to sow some seeds of mercy, some seeds of grace, some seeds of love in your garden, because everybody's going to have to eat from their garden they're planting every single day. And I've noticed something in life. You will eat of your garden sometimes at the wrong time, right? But if it's something good, you can have it all the time. When the enemy is in the land, those who sowed mercy or reap mercy from their enemies.
Absolutely.
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 So maybe some the enemy come over, get everybody else, but take care of you.
Absolutely. That's because that's the law of God, and that's how it will work. Mike, going forward, we got to talk about this. The terror victims in the Israeli attack, they're suing the Associated Press because the members of the Associated Press were embedded in this attack.
Yes, they were.
So we already have a bad enough problem when we don't trust the press because we can't. They lie so much to us. But what does this mean, when Israel is saying, hold it a minute, and it's not just the press. There was others involved in opening the gates. Somebody had to have turned out the power, turned off the cameras, did something to allow this unbelievable assault on the nation of Israel.
Well, you know what, Pastor? They were over there. Many of them lived right there in that area. Right?
Yeah.
One of the guys who died, he lived with them. He knew about what they were about to do, and he didn't tell a soul. He was there to record. He was there to document, which I do. Listen, if you're a reporter working for a U.S.-based company,
right,
you don't follow the enemy into the camp of an ally, not saying that is treason.
That's right. That's treason.
That's what that is. Because getting your favorite shot for a corporation is no excuse for allowing people to be mutilated like they were, right? On any degree, on any level. So, in my opinion, that's absolute treason. And but you had a lot of those people. In fact, you have a lot of people right now in the enemy's camp doing the exact same thing. And these corporations are concerned about the almighty dollar, rather than the lives of people for them. Right? They want their credit, they want their ratings and everything else, and they'll do anything to get them. So it really displays that these guys report to get the confidence of the people so that you can continue to see them and pay for them.
That's the spirit of murder.
The lives of anybody.
Mike, that is the spirit of murder. That's murderous.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And willfully so. They're doing this willfully.
Yeah, they're complicit in the murder of people, and they can't. There's no righteousness at all. I don't care what they say. Well, I have a righteous oath to follow the story. No, you have a right to. You have to do the right thing at all times, no matter what profession you're in. You don't get a free pass because you're part of the press and you just can't help it. That's crazy. So we got the same thing going on in government. We got people who say that they're a Christian in government, and yet they will lie like a dog in front of everybody, and they justify it and say, well, I have a private life in Christ, but publicly I have to be. No, I'm not buying it. Are you?
No. It's just like this, one of the most divisive subjects out there is abortion, right?
Right.
You can't take a stance on one side one day, flip it the other day because you found out your ratings dropped.
No.
And people should really start seeing through that. But you know what, Pascal? Everybody's going to find out that one day we had one shot at this thing called life, and that we should have come together during this time.
Yep.
Not further, but unfortunately, there's some bad apples that will always get with good people to try and keep them separated.
Yeah.
And those, well, according to the Word of God, they'll be gathered. The tares are going to be gathered together first.
That's right.
I believe the kingdom of the beast, all this iniquitous stuff that's happening, they're getting together on this stuff, right? Their groups are getting bigger. Let them all jumble up together so they can be one big happy family, and then kapoof, they're going to be thrust into darkness. I believe that's part of the separation. It is not good to see. It's going to be like pulling a scab off your body. It's going to hurt, right, to separate those druggists, because they don't want to separate. They have a joy of perverting the righteous, but it is part of the end process. And we're victorious anyway in the end.
Yes, so that's why
it is indeed a process. It's a process.
Amen.
So, Pascal, thank you for doing what you're doing, because in this process, a lot of people, if they have no clue of what's coming, even when it sounds crazy, if they have no clue, they're just going to be ineffective for everybody. They're going to be no help to anybody. And they'll end up corrupting their own walk if they're scared enough. Because people are going to get scared. But the key is not to act on fear, not to walk by fear.
Right.
Right? Things scare me, but I will never make a decision by fear.
Amen.
Because God did not give us the spirit of fear.
Right? Amen. That's right.
But if a person doesn't know, they're going to be out of their minds.
That's why we have to be watchmen and share the truth of what's coming. We can see the sword coming. We can see the enemy coming. We can see the destruction coming. And if we see it and we don't warn the people, God said he'll require their blood on our hands. I don't want that. Do you, Mike? I mean, that's
I couldn't even live with myself.
There's no way.
If I just let a person fall into a hole, I can't do that.
No, you can't.
I can't do that.
No, and that's why sometimes at the end of the day, I ask myself, have I done everything I could do? Unfortunately, the answer is always no. I try as hard as I can, but I never can do everything that I can. There's no way. Only Christ can go all the way, and he's carrying us. But we do have a job to do. We do have a responsibility to shine the light and to be faithful to God and to one another. I thank you for always coming on these Thursday nights. Even last week, I knew you was under the weather. You're always on time. You're always ready to go unless you get called away on something. And, you're always willing to share what you can and be honest with the people, and yet not breach protocol as classified information. Always doing it in a very professional way, and where people can learn how to read between the lines. And part of the reason we need the Bible, because the Bible there's no doubt about it, the Bible has the answers, and we just got to take a look at some things happening and how that applies to the Bible. When you said Joel 3, it's about to happen, I 1,000% put an amen on that. We're going to see this happen. It's already happening, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, that process, it's becoming more and more, prevalent.
Is World War III are we already in World War III, Mike?
Personally, I think we are. In most wars, in the global wars, most people did not know they were in the global war, right?
Yeah.
World War III happened before Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, okay. Take it that far.
We were drawn into it, and that's when we recognized, there was a big problem out there. Well, Right now, the USA is not part of the Middle East as far as what they're doing, but the Middle East is at war right now.
Yes.
Russia's at war right now.
Yes.
China is backing war elements right now. Iran is everybody's at war right now.
Right.
And the USA, again, has not been drawn into it. Right now, I can say this also. I do not desire another event that looks like Pearl Harbor. But for some reason, we don't wake up until a big alarm clock goes off. Right? We don't.
Right.
But I suspect that if we do not respond out of pure humanity, right, and to fulfill our role, because I believe the Lord set the United States just where it is, not with all the evil stuff. But if we weren't here, we know this world would be.
Oh, it would be chaos. It'd be murders. It'd be unstoppably horrible and evil.
Yeah,
it's bad enough.
A lot worse. And I believe if we don't stand up to that role that we're given, right, the Lord's going to wake us up again, just like Pearl Harbor. And unfortunately, it takes a pretty good pounding to get us to wake up and to work together, to get beyond our differences.
Amen.
It is unfortunate, but that's what happens.
All right, Mike, I think it was around February 19th, it's kind of into the broadcast, I believe it was last week, and you said, in about 40 days, we're going to be talking about, there's going to be an event. Can you elaborate on that? Is that part of the...
I can.
You can?
I can't.
Okay.
I can't.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I can't. But Pastor Paul, these are going to be heavy times.
But we're going to know. Let me ask you this.
Remember last week that little comment I snuck in there? You said something about Putin.
Yeah.
And I said, Putin's a nice guy unless you're his opposition.
Yeah, I know. And then what happened?
And that guy died the next day.
He was killed the next day.
That was awful.
Yeah. Well, Mike, when you said you can't, I appreciate you saying that. I'm saying that I'm asking this. We'll probably know what that is then when this takes place.
We're going to talk about it on this show as we get close to that, Pastor Paul, because
we'll know.
We have heavy things on the way. We have heavy things on the way.
Wow.
And I just pray people are prepped and ready, really ready. Really ready.
Folks, every week you should be here on these Thursday nights and tell others. I mean, this is a time, I think, to really tell other people to start listening in, people who've never listened before. I think in the next 3 weeks leading up to this 40th day process, plus beyond that, people need to know that there's things happening that's affecting eternity. I mean, eternity. It's on the line. Lucifer is trying to dethrone Jesus Christ, and we are in the middle of it. And we can decide which side we're on. And people need to know some of the events are going to happen. I had a dream where I seen the blood running out of people's faces. Let me tell you, and I shared this with you guys 2 years ago. And it was because Russia revealed a weapon, and the people that were there, they were diplomats. Women were crying, and men looked like ghosts because of some type of weapon. And now this is before Russia invaded Ukraine. Mike, you remember me sharing this?
I do.
I even showing you a picture of some of the uniforms they were wearing. And you said, those, you knew what they were, NBC type. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if Russia has this weapon I seen in the dream, but whatever it was, it brought men to their knees and run the blood out of their body. Do you think they have such a weapon?
Putin is so confident because he has not shown his hand. Putin right now, if I were to say it, it would sound terrible, right? But if I could describe Putin, I would say he has space dominance right now. I know that flies in the face of quite a bit.
I know,
right?
But it's true.
But Putin has not shown his hand. He hides bases very well.
Wow.
And then he has not used anything modern that I've seen in any of these conflicts yet. He's not used it.
So he's holding back. He's holding back.
He's using everybody else's stuff. He's not utilizing his own equipment. If he were to pull out some of that equipment, first of all, nobody would actually be able to see it because he's gone far beyond, he's pressed physics all the way to its limits. Let's put it that way.
he's got some of the greatest scientists in the world, and they've got some of them have devious minds, and so mankind is going to suffer from that, no doubt about that. Mike, what are we going to be talking about next week? I know we ain't to the 40 days yet, but what are we going to continue to see the sun blowing up, or what are we going to be talking about?
Well, it'll be solar related. 8 minutes it takes for a pretty good burst to reach Earth, but then there is another effect that takes probably within a 24-hour range.
Earthquake?
For example, the Atlantic Ocean, right? When that last one went off just a little bit ago, in the Atlantic, there was they have probes down there, right? They check for ultrasonics. There was a deep vibration in the ultrasonics. Now, this happened right before certain eruptions. And so here we have those ultrasonics again. Those folks in Haiti and Chile, Lord help them, because that's a very volatile place. Haiti could actually shake totally apart. And this time, I mean absolutely and totally apart.
So we should
Chile
be...
is the same thing, right? And of course, if Chile falls, Chile and Peru and those places fall, we don't have the stability of the Cocos plate. And if that cork comes out, those in California, well, you know the rest of that story.
So these solar flares, the massive X flares, the pressure they're going to put on the Earth, we better watch the next 72 hours. Maybe there could be a massive earthquake. It's possible.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's very and again, BP Earthwatch. He made people on the internet realize. I thought that was awesome.
He did. That's right.
He made people realize that because he wouldn't let that go. And so hopefully he's listening and he won't let go of the fact that every time we have a solar flare, that there are ultrasonics that begin to go off, causing a heightened anomalistic area in the northern pole and the Atlantic to cut up and get bigger. That's going to be a big problem.
Well, I would say I know for sure he's watching right now, and he sent me an email 19 minutes before I went live to let me know that this X flare had happened. So I'm sure he's listening right now, and he'll start looking into where the vibrations are. So I'm glad. I'm really thankful he did that. I think he really helped wake up the world. Now people are taking it serious that earthquakes follow major solar flares. And wow. Haiti and Chile, I will be watching and praying for these folks.
Yeah, they're not prepared, Pastor Paul, for that. They're not.
Mike, I appreciate you coming on tonight and giving us a great broadcast tonight with great information. Thank you for doing it for the cause of Jesus Christ to help people find the Lord.
My honor, Pastor Paul.
Well, the honor's always mine. Thank you. God bless, brother.
God bless.